Well, here's what Netanyahu said before he left.
I'm leaving now for a meeting with French President Emmanuel Macron. The main issue that will be at the center of our discussion is, of course, Iran and the joint efforts to fight its aggression and its push to obtain nuclear weapons.
The Israeli Prime Minister speaking there. Well, let's get the latest from Jerusalem. We can speak to ABC correspondent Jordana Miller, who's standing by for us. Jordana, what's going to be under discussion this evening, as far as you're aware?
Well, we listened to Netanyahu, speaking before he departed there to Paris, and he's hitting the same chords and themes that he did on the recent visit of Secretary of State Antony Blinken from the United States, saying Iran and expanding peace will be, the center of the discussions. But I think that Netanyahu will find, as he did with Blinken, with the French president, that there's a lot more on that plate to talk about. Some of it will make Netanyahu quite uncomfortable. So aside from Iran, and of course, Netanyahu wants to try to convince France and many other leaders in the European Union to drop the idea of reviving the 2015 nuclear deal, especially given what's happening in Iran and their brutal crackdown on protests there. The French president is likely to bring up some uncomfortable matters like the peace process, the fact that things are incredibly stalled, and the problematic far-right leaders that are now have unprecedented power here and who are pledging an agenda that conflicts with not only that of the United States, but of course Europe as well, and France, pledging to expand settlements and to legalize illegal outposts and to talk about annexation. These are all problematic issues that undermine the two-state solution. And so I imagine, perhaps not in public, but behind closed doors, that Macron will discuss France's reservations about steps that will undermine a two-state solution. He may go as far as to also address the radical judicial reform that Netanyahu's government wants to push through, which would undermine Israel's democracy and make it harder to defend in the international community and harder for Europe, France, and the United States to say that Israel is the only vital democracy here in the Middle East.
And according to some analysts, Prime Minister Netanyahu is likely to play the Ukraine card when he speaks to his hosts here in Paris. What does that mean?
Right. Well, Netanyahu has said that he is going to put under review Israel's Ukraine policy. So far, Israel has refused to supply any air defense systems, any offensive weapons to Ukraine because it has a lot of national security concerns on its northern border, in Syria, where, of course, Russia controls the skies, and Israel needs to have a free hand there, it says, to carry out missions against Iranian assets there. But Netanyahu has kind of been throwing out and teasing the international community, saying he's going to put this policy under review. Perhaps Israel will move forward and give some other offensive weapons to Ukraine. And in exchange, Netanyahu may play that card and ask, again, the French president to help him convince the Europeans and the Americans to drop the idea of reviving the Iran nuclear deal and to move what Israel calls its Plan B. How can we thwart Iran's program, in cyberspace with missions, with sabotage missions and other military actions, and share intelligence, etc.
Okay, well, Jordana Miller, thank you very much indeed for giving us that update from Jerusalem.